November 22nd. I had never been more scared or felt more alive than right now. The Boeing 747 taxied up to the terminal at McCarran International and sidled into the jet bridge. In a matter of minutes, the attendants helped the crowd disembark. Those of us in coach had to wait until last, which didn't matter to me at all. I had finally arrived in America, my new home. Including the layovers in Paris and Atlanta, my trip had taken me 14 hours. Imagine me, a nobody who worked at a tiny pastry kitchen with my aunt and grandmother in a remote part of the Czech Republic, traveling the world. Nobody believed I could do it. I still can't believe I'm doing it. I looked out the little rectangular window to attempt my first glimpse of America. Specifically, Las Vegas, America. It wasn't much of a glance. From the air, it seemed like everything was brown. It wasn't much different on the ground. It was finally my turn to get off the plane, and I disembarked with everybody else from coach. My cousin texted. He was the only one of my relatives that lived in America, which made it logical to choose Las Vegas. I can't believe I'm here. This strange, unfamiliar place words seemed like a magic spell, and when I said them, they promised a better life. Las Vegas, Nevada, United States of America. Las Vegas, Nevada, United States of America. Las Vegas, Nevada, United States of America. I was finally here. For a second, happiness exploded inside me. After a whirlwind visit with customs officials and baggage check and collecting my baggage from the carousel, I stepped into America. My cousin Wenzel waited out front with his wife and 2-year-old daughter next to their old white Toyota Camry. I was exhausted and overwhelmed and completely unprepared for my new life. And excited. I am Radek Biel, and I came from Karlovy Vary, a small town in the Czech Republic. Living in America had been my dream for the last 4 years, ever since I graduated school. I have studied English, read everything I could find out about America, and dreamed about living here, the land of promise. I had applied and been accepted for a 2-year student visa, and also applied for UNLV, the university in Nevada. As I was about to learn, I still had a lot to learn. As I stepped outside from the coolness of the airport terminal, I stepped into a dry heat I had never experienced. Wasn't this November? Wenzel was right. Vegas was hot most of the time, most of the year. Even the hottest summer days back home did not feel like this, and I wished for a bath immediately. Slowly, I stretched my back, taking in the strange sights. I'm actually here. Las Vegas, Nevada, United States of America. I had also never been in a city this big before. Even Prague, with its 1 million people, wasn't as big as Las Vegas. But there weren't that many people about today. Wenzel had told me a couple of weeks ago that I was arriving on a major American holiday. The buildings in Las Vegas were different than those back home. Huge hotels and casinos and a giant Ferris wheel, and I gawked like a tourist. "Welcome to Vegas, Radek," Wenzel's wife, Hannah, said, and gave me a hug. The only time I'd seen her, outside of video calls, was at their virtual wedding reception back in the Czech Republic. I hugged her and said, "Thank you." "We're spending a couple of nights with my parents down in Henderson," she said. "Then we'll head back to our apartment where you can stay until you find a job and get your own place." I gave her a smile and said, "I do not want to be a burden." "Nonsense," Wenzel replied. "It's good to have family here, especially for today." "What is this Thanksgiving?" I asked. "One of the 2 holidays the good old US of A shuts down for," Wenzel said. At my dumb look, he added, "where we celebrate family and food and football games." "If you hadn't booked your flight a month ago, you would never have gotten a flight," Hannah said. "Today is the worst travel day of the year." "It's even worse than Christmas," Wenzel said. "I'm sorry, I did not know," I said. "Don't worry about it," Hannah said. "I already told my parents that you're coming, and my brothers won't be around because one is in the army and the other lives in San Francisco, so there's plenty of room. Dad's making his Cajun deep-fried turkey. Grandma's making her lattice apple pie. I'm bringing the pumpkin pie, and Auntie Dell is bringing her famous bread. She works at the steakhouse, and all she does every day is make bread. Mom's making a giant string bean casserole. It's the best you've ever eaten. Honey, don't forget, we've already mashed the potatoes, and isn't your sister bringing her yam and marshmallow casserole? Radek, you've never eaten so much good food," Wenzel said. "Welcome to America." "I work in a bakery," I said. "I can make something for dessert." "All you have to do is eat, and eat, and eat," both Wenzel and his wife said at the same time. And then Hannah said, "You just got off an airplane. Barely spent 5 minutes here, haven't even met anybody, and you want to make something? Next year." After Wenzel tossed my 2 suitcases into the trunk, we all climbed into the Camry, me in the back seat next to the car seat for their toddler, and began the trek through the almost deserted Las Vegas streets and south to Henderson. It felt odd, because I was spending a holiday I barely knew anything about, with strangers who were barely related to me. Maybe coming to Las Vegas hadn't been the best decision I had made, but I wanted to be in America so bad. Look at the size of Las Vegas. It's way bigger than Prague. It's an order of magnitude bigger than the town I grew up in. Staring out the car window, the first pangs of exhaustion and homesickness lodged in my gut. Did I regret leaving home, leaving my family, leaving the pastry shop where I worked with my grandma and my aunt? Las Vegas was so big and so different, it even smelled different, like it smelled of car exhaust and oil and a faint whiff of something like curried fried potatoes. The buildings looked strange, squared off, and some were covered in odd decorations and lights, and some had huge fountains. This city was made of new angular buildings, and some buildings seemed like they were made of pure mirror and rocks and concrete and stainless steel and sharp angles. Not like the old buildings of back home, with their history and trees and old roads. America looked different from anything I had grown up with. What's done is done. I can't go back home, because I would be known as the man who quit. This was supposed to be my dream, but it looked so different from what I imagined. What had I done? My student visa lasted 2 years. Somehow, I had to survive. "I know what you're thinking, Radek. Las Vegas is overwhelming," my cousin Wenzel said. "I think I was lost my first 6 months here." "Good thing you found me, because you still get lost," his wife quipped. Her phone buzzed with an incoming text. "That's Mom. Dinner's delayed by 30 minutes. "She give a reason?" Wenzel asked. "He's coming straight from San Francisco, but he isn't straight. Guess who left the Bay Area at 4 this morning and has driven all morning," she said. "Your baby bro?" Wenzel asked. "The one and only Bobby." Hannah turned in her seat to face me and asked, "Radek, how old are you?" "I am 22, I said. His wife aimed her phone at me and snapped a picture. "You spell your name R-A-D-E-K, right?" "Yes. It was my great-grandfather's name." What was she going to do with my picture? It wouldn't look good. I'd look like a tired, unshaved, jet-lagged guy who had just flown halfway across the world, wearing wrinkled clothes, and I could barely keep my eyes open. I bet I looked like a brooding psychopath. It just might be the worst picture taken of me, ever. She read her phone as she wrote, "Bobby, bringing Radek from Czech Republic, husband's cousin, first time in America, and he has literally just arrived. He's cute, and your type. Time to work your charm and make him feel welcome." She quickly sent the text. I quickly blushed. Not quite understanding what she was talking about, because English was not my first language, I asked, "What is your brother's type?" "Little lost puppies," she said. Wenzel snickered. Though I knew the meaning of the words, I did not understand her meaning. Best leave it for now, before I make a fool of myself in my first hour in America. So I innocently asked, "What kind of a dog does he own?" Hannah chuckled and said, "When didn't you mention that Radek's boyfriend didn't want a long-distance relationship and broke up?" "I will be gone for 2 years, if not more," I said. "It would not be fair to either of us." Hannah slowly hid her smile as she texted her brother something else. "You're not thinking of what I think you're thinking," Wenzel asked. "A blind date for Thanksgiving for my cousin and your brother? Are you crazy?" His wife smirked. "You know me, never miss an opportunity to spread the romance." "But Radek just got off the plane," Wenzel said. "He doesn't know anything about America. Radek, how do you feel about this?" I wanted to keep my mouth shut, because this day was beyond my control. I took a moment to think, and finally said, "It would be nice to have a friend." "Let me show you a picture of Bobby," Wenzel's wife said. She clicked through some photos and showed one to me. He's my littlest brother. Classic American surfer with sun-bronzed skin and sun-bronzed hair, wearing a loose-fitting shirt and flashing an accidental smile. Then she flicked through a few more photos and paused on a man in army fatigues. "That's my other brother, Greg. He's on tour in the Mideast and has leave the first real week in January, so Christmas will be late this year." The buildings in Henderson seemed a little more relaxed and more residential. We pulled through a couple of side streets and finally up to a one-story, yellow brick rambler situated on a large yard landscaped to look like the desert. As we parked, I was very glad to finally stop sitting and climbed out of the car. A blue Toyota Prius pulled in back of us, travel-stained with a lot of dust. The man inside matched the pictures Hannah had shown me. A few centimeters taller than me, his hair was a dark blonde with highlights, his skin was brown from living in the sun all the time. His smile was genuine. It was also very tired. How far away was San Francisco from Las Vegas? 2 older people, I guess their parents, ran out of the house and hugged everybody, even me. The last time I'd seen them was at the virtual wedding reception back in Czech, and I barely remembered that. They ushered us inside. Displays of autumn flowers and autumn leaves were about the house, and the biggest table filled the largest room. The table was set for 14 people, and a woman was setting out champagne glasses filled with a red sauce, while another woman walked around to each glass and hung a half-dozen shrimp on the edges. Each place setting also had a name tag. How long had it been since I'd been to any party with assigned seating? A smaller table with 6 seats stood in a separate area, the kids' table. I looked for my name, hoping I sat next to Wenzel or Hannah. The heavens didn't bless me with that kind of luck. Instead, they had placed me next to Bobby on my right and some aunt on my left. "We have a few minutes before the turkey is ready," the father said. "Bobby, if you and Radek want to finish up, your old room is just as you left it. Why don't you follow Bobby?" Was it my imagination, or was Hannah giggling? What was she up to? Wenzel had pulled my 2 suitcases from the car and carried them to a back bedroom. The room had 2 beds, neatly made. The 2 brothers must have slept here in days gone by. Bobby left his suitcase on one bed. Wenzel left my 2 on the other. Bobby whipped his shirt off. This man lived at the beach, completely tan, with muscles like a magazine. With the way Hannah had spoken, I think he was gay. Part of me found the irony. Not even an hour in America, and they were already setting me up on a date. Bobby went to the adjoining bathroom to freshen up. I looked through my packed clothes, found something that looked less wrinkled, and put it on. "Hannah says you're a pastry chef back in the Czech Republic," Bobby yelled out of the bathroom. "My grandfather opened the pekarny, that means bakery, 30 years ago," I said, "and when he had heart problems, my grandmother and my aunt took it on. They needed help. I needed a job, so I worked there." Bobby came back out of the bathroom, a large yellow towel slung around his shoulders. He looked just like a California surfer god should look, bronze, muscled, and ready for another day in the sun. I don't think there is a man on the planet that wouldn't want to look like that. Not like me, dark-haired, skinny, pale. "Any favorites?" Bobby asked. It took a second before I realized he was talking about the pastries I made, and so I answered, "I don't know how to say them in English, but there is this one with strawberry filling I think you would like." A huge yawn escaped my mouth. 3 p.m. in Vegas time is midnight back in the Czech Republic. My 7-hour jet lag was catching up to me. My yawn was contagious. A second later, Bobby yawned. His long drive had caught up to him. "I don't think I'm going to stay awake much past dinner," he said. "I've managed to get the next week off. Maybe I can show you the sights. How long are you going to be in town?" 2 years, I said. "In that case," Bobby said, smiling, "let me introduce you to some of the hot spots in Vegas." A few minutes later, we went down to dinner. I'd never had a dinner like this before. Many of the vegetables were familiar. Some were not. I'd never had Cajun deep-fried turkey before, or pumpkin pie, and a strange dish they called candy yams, that was half apples, half yams, that was covered with marshmallows and brown sugar. I did not care for the pumpkin pie smothered in whipped cream, but the apple pie was similar to an apple strudel I made for the bakery. I took a second piece to eat with my coffee. They served a selection of white wines, imported from a vineyard in California. America has vineyards? I've only been here for 3 hours, and I'm learning things already. During the feast, I stayed quiet and listened. They spoke about jobs, the state of the economy, and finally, something I could comment on. Football games. I love soccer. "South Africa is said to have an advantage over Brazil," I said. Everybody looked at me with the weirdest look. What? They didn't expect a baker from the Czech Republic to follow football? I continued and said, "Today's game, South Africa has played at Sydney many times before, and since Jorge Roderick retired last season, Brazil hasn't recovered. They have no equivalent players. Do you know what time the game is broadcast? Because of the 7-hour time difference, and with us being in America, it could be very different, and that is assuming there isn't a time delay." An odd silence followed, and my cousin barely managed to keep a straight face. "I've been looking forward to this game," I said. "Brazil might surprise the world and win, and if they do, it could change the rankings for the World Cup. I was sad because I thought I was going to miss it. Do you know what time it starts?" "The good news," Hannah's mother said, "is that we finally found something Radek likes to talk about, and it is sports." Bobby leaned over and said, "They're talking about American football, not soccer. Thanksgiving afternoons have several college bowl games. I think it's University of Louisiana versus Kentucky State." "Oh," I said, suddenly embarrassed. "I don't know anything about American football." Why had I opened my mouth? Because I tried to fit in. Bobby's dad made an open space on the tablecloth and, using forks and knives and some of the empty dishes, made an impromptu playing field. They set a couple of teams up and tried to explain the rules. First down, second down, touchdowns, and how everything shifts when a team achieves fourth down and it returns to first down. It was chaos as everybody tried to explain something about the game. The feast had ended, and then the men made their way to the living room and turned on a game. The woman began cleaning away the feast. That wasn't how I was trained at the bakery. It takes a village to make a feast, and it takes a village to clean up after one. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. Everybody cleans up. Then the men go to the pubs and get drunk and watch soccer, and the women visit the neighbors and gossip. But the bakery is ready for tomorrow. Instead, here in America, all the men camped out in front of their huge, wall-sized television, watching an American football game I didn't understand, while the women huddled away in the kitchen, giggling and gossiping and complaining. I don't understand America. I began shuttling dirty dishes into the kitchen and food trays and tried to analyze how Americans made some of their desserts. Maybe I could recreate some of them when I finally got back home. Except for the pumpkin pie. I didn't like pumpkin pie. But that would be in 2 years. I had to smile. Maybe I could shift my university focus to American cooking. As I was putting food away, I mentally took inventory. Though some of the ingredients seemed a little different, this household had all I would need to make one of my specialty pastries, a strawberry bar cookie that my grandmother had taught me, and her grandmother had taught her. I found Hannah and Bobby's mother and said, "I wish to say thank you for the feast. By preparing something from my country for this festive occasion, I would like to make you a customary pastry we make at my bakery. You have all the ingredients, and it won't take long for me to put it together, and then we can bake it so it will be ready for a late-night snack, or even for breakfast." "Ladies," she chuckled, looking at all the women around her, "it's a man that cooks and knows his way around a kitchen. Where were you 30 years ago? I'll help, because I want to learn how to make this." Over the next half hour, I not only taught how to make it, but prepared 2 trays of the delicacy. I had to use my phone to convert measurements to the American system and adjust oven temperatures, but it wasn't long before this home smelled like my home. As I was forming the dough, Wenzel came to me and said, "When was the last time you slept? Have you even slept since leaving Europe? Come and join us." I switched to Czech and admitted, "I am nervous. America is so different from home. I don't understand even the simple things. I only want to fit in, but I can't. Did I make a mistake coming here?" Wenzel responded with the simple, "Radek, nobody thinks straight after a 14-hour flight and massive jet lag. You need to relax." "When I'm done making the pastries," I said, still speaking Czech. It wasn't long before I put everything in the oven. It was while I made a vanilla-infused glaze that Bobby found me. "Cleaning, and now baking. The house smells like heaven. You're making the rest of us look bad. Come watch the game." Fighting the exhaustion in my soul and not willing to admit that I didn't understand the American football, I quickly said, "I am almost done." I think Bobby must have read my soul, because he took the spoon out of my hand and led me into the big room with all the other people and made me sit on the couch. He took a seat next to me. The day caught up to me. I curled up into the couch and drifted into oblivion. It was dark outside when I woke. Warm, comfortable, soft breathing next to me. I'd fallen asleep and been asleep for hours. Bobby lay next to me, his arm around me. He was asleep also, his blonde hair slightly mussed. Somebody had wrapped us both in a knitted yellow and brown quilt. Whatever game the TV had played before was now playing some drama about a prince and his magical subjects. I didn't recognize it. The air smelled of the leftover feast and the pastry I'd made earlier. How long had I been asleep? How long had Bobby and I been asleep? I looked at his relaxed face, listened to his gentle breathing, and cuddled nearer to him. Was this part of Hannah's plan? Did it matter? I was relaxed and cozy warm and didn't want to move. For the first time since I had arrived in America, I was comfortable. I snuggled into the man next to me, closed my eyes, and drifted to a place between waking and sleeping. Sometime later, I heard Hannah ask, "Is Radek still asleep?" Bobby stirred a little and whispered, "Must have been some flight." "You always were a sucker for puppy dog eyes," she whispered. "Radix pastries are delicious. I'll bring you one." I now understood her earlier comment. I'm alone in a land I don't understand, alone among strangers I don't know, alone in a city that is completely different from anything I know. No friends, save my cousin and his wife. I'm the little lost puppy. I wallowed in my aloneness for a moment. I had jumped away from everything that was safe, for a chance to leave the known, a chance to explore a new land, meet a new people, find a new school, make new possibilities, as well as explore myself, and maybe try new food and live with new customs. Somehow, though I jumped into the unknown, among strangers, among a land filled with uncertainty and the unknown, someone had caught me. Bobby must have sensed me stirring, because he whispered, "Feeling better? You've been asleep for 3 hours." Hannah brought a plate with a couple of pastries. She smiled when she saw me awake and said, "A bunch of us are going out to the bar on 7th. Do you two want to come, or shall I hand you the remote?" "The remote," I said. Bobby quickly checked something on his phone and said, "Or I found a bar about 30 minutes away, Sylvia's, playing the match between Brazil and South Africa. If we hurry, we can catch most of it." My first night in America was spent at a little bar watching soccer, while Bobby and I slowly downed a couple of pints of a dark lager and screamed about each play with everybody else in the bar. It felt like home. When we finally got home, about 2 a.m, we collapsed on the couch, stupidly drunk and stupidly cuddled and stupidly made out. Blame it on the beer. Dark lager is dangerous. Because, a year and a half later, we went to Paris to watch the France versus Japan World Cup for our honeymoon. To this day, Hannah still takes credit for introducing us. The end. I'm Gio, author and reader of this piece, and thank you for joining me. And thank you for all the well wishes concerning my health. I appreciate that. I'll keep you updated as soon as I learn more. We'll see you next time. And happy Thanksgiving. Peace.